This video is about Wow Melt-it powder. Firstly, the powder itself comes in these large jars and it's designed really for melting and mixing with other Wow powders for moulds or other techniques. So firstly, the powder itself, here's a pot I've opened earlier, is a consistency of icing sugar, and it's this small crystal size that means that it melts more easily and quickly by any of the methods that I'm going to show you today. For convenience in tidying up, I tend to melt the melti-it powder, or any of the other powders indeed, in these disposable pie dishes. And to get a good pouring spout, I grip it between my finger and thumb either side and stretch the crinkles slightly before making a V-shape notch for pouring from it. Then you just measure out the amount of powder that you need, and for this video I'm going to use 2 scoops, which are 2 tablespoons throughout, so that we can compare the melting times between the 3 methods. So I'm just going to pop that into the tray, and the 3 methods I'm going to look at are using an oven, a melt pot and a heat gun. And for this you'll need your powder, a peg, preferably wooden. Tweezers will do, but it needs to be non-heat conductive, and I've also got a silicone spatula for stirring purposes. It would be helpful as well if you have some of the Wow powders, such as ebony, lemon, I'm using sherbet, or the white, and superfine strength of grade of those powders work really well for colouring. So I have a preheated oven to 130 degrees centigrade, which looks like it's 275 degrees Fahrenheit for those that still have ancient ovens. I've popped my melt-it in a pie dish in a baking tray, and I'll now pop that in the oven. And that's 7 minutes. For the melt pot, I've preheated at the highest setting with the lid on until I know that it's uniformly hot, and then I'm going to place in the dish and replace the lid and leave it to melt. And 4 minutes in, the very last bits are just beginning to melt in. At this stage it's good to mix one of the other colours in. I'm going to mix some primary yellow, the lemon, in, and I'm just going to sprinkle a small amount over the top. As you can see, that's already melting in. And I'm going to use a silicone spatula just to give it a stir, and to keep things steady I'm going to hold with a peg. And you can see the colours, or hopefully you can see the colours mix in really nicely. The pigment distributes well through the molten powder, and with a few quick stirs that's very nicely liquid. Keeping it warm with the lid on obviously helps things speed up, and when you're pouring you want to make sure that this is more or less as hot as you can get it, so that you can get a nice smooth moulding. Then the third method you can use is using the heat gun. I've placed the powder in the pie dish, firmly attached a wooden peg. Pliers, anything that's non-heat conductive works well. Now please be sure to heat from underneath. The powder is very fine, and if you use the heat gun from on top, the powder will explode upwards and outwards everywhere. So we will now start heating from beneath. Hold the heat gun vertically underneath the pan until it's molten. And that's more or less melted now at 7 minutes. So to colour, I'm just going to take some bright white superfine, sprinkle that on, give it a stir in, and you can see the fine powder is already melting in, and we're getting a really nice opaque mix, which makes the other powders go much further, the coloured powders. So that's beginning to clag up now and needs some more heat on it. And at this stage, because it's liquid, you can heat from the top. The powder's not going to go anywhere. Heating from the top's also great for getting bubbles out. So we now have very pourable molten colour mix. So there we have it, a versatile powder designed for melting, mixing, pouring and moulding.